All right, here we go. Akon, welcome back.
Absolutely.
Man, we go back almost 20 years.
I know, man. Reflecting back, like, wow, look how far we come, man.
I know, man. and I would always say this, like, I've interviewed so many multi-platinum artists, movie stars, billionaires, but I always felt like my Akon interviews are the most important interviews I've done.
No, I appreciate that.
You know, there's people that are entertainers, property owners, business people, but you actually helped millions of people. Lighting Africa.
Right.
Brought electricity to places that have never had it. Ever. Period. You know, imagine trying to do work without electricity.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. Imagine that, like a kerosene lamp.
Right.
Imagine that. Or someone who's building their own city. I don't interview people like this. You're the only one. So congratulations on that.
No, I appreciate you, Vlad.
And let's start off with that. Because last time you were here, you're saying that Akon City was supposed to open in 2026.
Yeah.
But then COVID hit and...
Right.
So where is Akon City at right now?
We're still on track.
Okay.
The thing about the COVID, yeah, it kind of stalled a bit because a lot of partners and solution, providers obviously had to lock down, but it didn't affect more so of the paper pushing side of it, So there's a lot of admin that's done, a lot of agreements that's still negotiated via Zoom and things like that. So we was able to get a lot of that out the way. So now we're in a stage of feasibility studies, environmental studies. Those are things that you can't do it unless you're actually on the grounds. So that kind of lacked up a little bit, but now we're back pretty much on track, still moving. Now construction is starting 2023.
Aha.
But we still have the 3-year window for the first phase to be done. And our goal is to be the first phase to be done still by 2026 to make the Junior Olympics in Senegal.
Aha. Okay. So by 2026, what will we have in Akon City exactly?
As of right now, you're going to have the hotel.
Okay.
And you're going to also have the Akon Tower, which is built, which is the corporate building.
The Akon Tower in Akon City. I love it. I love it.
We're also going to have the boating docks and everything else, which will have the restaurants, F&B, which is food and beverage, all those stores that sell food and everything else like that. So we'll be in a good position to be able to invite the first wave of tourists, people that's coming to visit.
Okay. But you want people to actually live there and settle down?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, but there's no housing yet? I mean, there's the hotel, like you said.
Right.
Is there going to be actual...
First phase is all hotels.
Aha.
Because we want people to come, enjoy it, feel it, smell the air, taste the food, get to know the people, get to know the environment. But while they're there, we'll be in construction doing the condominiums, the beach home resorts, things like that, with the option to be able to pre-sale, put down on certain units before it goes all the way up. So you have the chance to actually start purchasing before it goes up.
And Senegal actually donated the land for this?
No, that's one of the biggest misconceptions. They thought that the government actually gave me the land. I actually had to buy it. Like, it's fully purchased out. But I am bringing the government in to partner for basic, somebody has to be enforcing the rules and stuff within the city itself. So.
Okay, so if I could ask, how much does a square mile in Senegal cost?
Well, now it's a lot more expensive.
But back then?
When I bought it, it was a lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper.
A lot cheaper. But now, put it this way, the land that I got that's for the city is currently worth $85 million, just the land by itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you spent a lot less than that.
A lot less, yes.
And you just bought it outright?
Yeah, just bought it outright.
Okay, so is there going to be a police station?
It's going to be a police station. It's going to be a fire department. And it's going to be ambulances and a mini hospital for now. But the hospital is going to actually scale out to be a 10,000-bed hospital.
Wow.
The biggest
10,000-bed hospital.
It's going to be the biggest hospital in West Africa.
In West Africa?
Yeah. Or in Africa, period.
So bigger than the Nigerian hospitals, everything?
It's going to be the biggest hospital in Africa.
That's crazy.
Biggest, yeah.
Is there going to be any Akon statues around?
No, it won't be no statues, but it'll be a lot of memorabilia.
You thought about it, though?
I thought about it, but I thought it'd be overkill.
I'd put up a statue.
Right.
I'd have a Vlad.
I know you.
If I had Vlad City, there'd be a Vlad statue right in the middle.
It'd be giving dictator.
It'd be right there next to Vlad Tower.
Yeah, that's a little too much. That's too much.
Okay, wow, man, that's so crazy. And you're gonna have a coin as the
currency,
as one of the currencies.
one of
There.
the currencies.
So you're gonna accept dollars as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because Acoin is more of a fiat currency, but it can be converted into crypto. You know what I mean? So the idea is to create that currency within the city that can be converted to any other currency in the world.
Right. And I mean, as a whole, crypto is really taking a hold in Africa.
Right.
Period. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, when I've seen the documentaries and everything else like that, there's not always the currency, and people don't always have access to bank accounts and so forth. But everybody has a phone.
Everybody has a phone.
So with the phone, you can make payments.
Absolutely.
And that's how it all kind of fits in
That's
to the
where
thing.
it makes all the sense in the world.
Okay. So is Acoin out right now?
It's active in Africa as we speak.
Okay. So is it being used in Africa?
It's being used currently right now in Africa. Yeah.
Okay. In what countries?
In Kenya.
Huh.
And right now we got a test going on in Uganda. So it's only in East Africa at the moment.
Okay. Did the whole crypto crash kind of affect it?
Nah, not at all.
Really?
Honestly, not at all. Because our currency don't really coincide with the, Western currencies like that. And then Acoin is built specifically on mobile minutes. So we transfer your mobile minutes into currency that can be spent on the market. So let me explain that.
Yeah, I don't get that. I don't get it. Yeah.
So basically, the currencies in certain parts of Africa are so untrusted that people are utilizing their mobile minutes to purchase at the local market. So instead of giving them the local currency, they would just transfer minutes.
Oh, okay. I don't
That's
got
what
10.
gave me the
Okay.
idea.
I don't have $10, but I'll give you 10 minutes on your phone to use, and we'll just call it even.
So I was like, wait a minute. They're not using money. They're using mobile minutes.
Huh.
And that's what gave me the idea. Ding. So we decided to create Acoin to facilitate that transaction.
Okay. How much Acoin do you actually own?
I mean, I am the bank.
I bet.
I got 1 million minutes.
I'm sure you have more than 1 million minutes.
1 million minutes.
Okay. Now, does this somehow coincide with the Lighting Africa project?
No, actually it doesn't. But we are going to incorporate all of that as we go into it, because the way the platform is set up to where you can utilize the Acoin platform to also pay your water bill, your light bill, all your basic utilities. And eventually you're going to be able to go to every major grocery store and be able to utilize it that way as well.
Okay. And in terms of the Lighting Africa project, last time we talked, I forgot how many millions of homes have been lit up through solar power. Where are we right now?
Oh yeah, that's still going and still growing. We actually moved now into the United States. So I have Akon Lighting here in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah, we're based in North Carolina. That's where our major hub is. I mean, we're doing projects in Arizona, projects in Texas. And we teamed up with the Biden administration as far as the clean energy program.
I heard about this. Yeah.
To where we're actually recommissioning all the coal plants in the urban communities.
Okay, so is this like solar panels on your roof, or is it something else?
Oh no, it's all sources of renewable. But of course, we specialize in solar. So what we did, we just started buying out all these little solar companies everywhere in areas that,
Huh.
Yeah, so we've been acquiring a lot of small solar companies.
Yeah, because I remember with Tesla,
Right.
we looked into putting solar in our house. And once they gave the calculation, the estimate about how much it would cost, it would take like 200 years for us to break even in terms of the cost, and to the point where there's it actually makes sense financially.
It actually makes sense. You're 100% right, but it depends on the areas that you live in.
Yeah.
Because clearly the energy business especially around that time.
Yeah, I'm in Calabasas, so.
Yes, around that time, solar wasn't feasible. It didn't make sense, right? It made sense for the homeowner if they want to play just one flat sum and be good forever. But the problem that you will run into is that the utility company that's owned by the state still was in charge of the energy.
Yeah, because I remember we looked into it and it was like the cost was something like $100,000 or something, and then you couldn't completely power your house with it. You'd still have to have a regular electric bill, and partially it'd be solar, partially be electric.
Now, see, in Texas, it's deregulated.
Aha. That's what it is.
You got to find states that's deregulated to where you don't have to deal with the local, utility company. Then what you generate is yours. Matter of fact, if you generate enough energy, you can sell the energy that you're not using back to the utility and make money from it. And you get the tax credit on top of that.
Okay. And speaking of credit, you had like $1 billion line with China at
Yeah, it
one
was
point?
a $1 billion credit line from China.
All right, you spent it all yet, or you got a few M's left?
Yeah,
over?
we're asking for $5 billion now. We did a lot of work, man. We got to keep moving.
See, then use up the whole billion. Look at these
And paid it
conversations
back.
we're having right now. We're having $1 billion conversations.
We used
So you
it
spent
and
up the
paid it
whole
back.
billion, and you're like, man, I done burned through all this credit y'all gave me. I need another $5 billion.
We paid it back. Now we.
Oh, you paid it back?
Oh, of course.
Ah,
They gonna give you another 5 if you ain't paid it back the first.
okay.
That's how it works.
And now you're getting another $5 billion in credit
Yeah,
for solar panels?
it's all energy solutions.
Aha.
Solar is what we do best, but anything renewable, we dipping our hands in it somehow.
I mean, at a high level, when you see what's happening right now, gas is almost $7 a gallon.
Right, it's ridiculous.
The whole Russia conflict is creating these ridiculous prices.
Right.
U.S. and China relations are not very good.
Mm-hmm.
And Russia and U.S. relations are horrible.
Right.
So there's all this stuff that's happening from a high level of somebody that deals with energy on $1 billion level. How do you think this is going to ultimately play out?
Well, I mean, it ultimately plays out relating to how Russia decides to make it play out, right? Because Russia controls about at least maybe between 40 and 60% of the energy in Europe. Like, that's how strong Russia is. And this is why it's so tough. And you got to get NATO and all these organizations, along with the United States, combined to go back at Putin. Because if Putin pulled the plug, everybody in Europe is dead.
Right, because
for electricity talking about. So it's very political. You got to make very smart decisions. And you got to also be able to, you can say, understand, but also try to predict Putin's movements. And Putin, as you know, he's a chess player.
He's unpredictable.
He's a Russian.
Yeah.
He's not going to show you his cards, but he'll also, drop some crumbs over here and see if you come to bite it so he can know exactly where to attack on this end. So he's not the typical leader because he thinks so ahead. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So he's one of those guys that you can't really play with, and you can't bluff or try to wait for him to bluff.
Yeah, and
because he got less to lose. You got to understand, the blockade been in Russia for I don't know how many years. How many sanctions been put on Russia for the last 20, 30 years?
Tons.
I mean, you can't count it.
Right.
So what that did, it only strengthened him because what he did, he made Russia self-sustainable, where he don't need nobody, but y'all still need him. So tell me who's playing the best deck of cards at that moment.
Well, right, and he's rumored to be the richest person in the world.
Oh, that's not even without question.
You know what I'm saying? People are all Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, but that's because people actually know where their money comes from. He's got his money stashed away, probably thousands of different bank accounts, $1 billion here, 10 billion there.
Right. Oh, believe me, this man is paid, man.
Yep.
And you got to think these guys own platforms, but every platform coming out of Russia is partnered with the government.
Goes through him.
So that's a couple platforms.
Kind of like China.
Hundreds of platforms over here. And we just talk about one sector of where money comes from.
I mean, have you ever actually gone over to Russia and done any work or negotiations or business there?
I do private events. I travel back and forth to Russia all the time.
Well, on the entertainment level.
No, on the entertainment
But I'm
level.
talking about in terms of the business level, the energy.
On business, no, I've never done any business related to anything outside of entertainment in Russia.
Aha. And even that right now is kind of dicey.
Well, I mean, if they come to Africa, then I'll do business with them.
Okay, but you're not going to go to Russia to do a show right now.
It's not necessary. Africa's big enough. I don't need to go nowhere.
And you see what's happening with Brittany right now, Brittany Griner.
Hmm?
I mean, you see what's happening with Brittany over
but
there.
But Brittany got caught up in the political aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be smart. Like, you can't be so naive to think that because, we're special at home that we're going to be special when we go foreign. Sometimes we could be utilized as leverage, and we got to be very careful of that.
Well, yeah, but to be fair, like, for example, Fredro Starr is a regular guest on our show, part of Onyx, and that was their main market for years.
Right.
And he was like, yo, we smoke weed there all the time. Like, it's really tolerated over there. It's just that when someone has to use a political chess move, then it's like, okay, now we're going to say it's not tolerated.
Right.
But any other time, it's not a big deal.
Because you got to think, all fair in war. Like, it's war. Really, they're not saying it.
No, it is war.
It's war.
No, we're funding the Ukraine right now. We're not putting troops on the ground, but we're funding all the weapons. So we're really at war right now with Russia.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's the same thing. And you got to understand that when wartime comes, all those rules go out the window. None of that means nothing.
Well, but I mean, in China, it's a mess over there. Also, they're saying that the president, Xi Jinping, they're saying he might be on house arrest.
Yeah, that I'm not aware of. I don't.
You gonna leave that one alone?
Who put him on house arrest?
The Communist Party. Whoever wants to succeed him at this point.
Really? I had no idea.
That's the rumor. He hasn't been seen in a while.
That's interesting. Yeah, I have never heard of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about over there. I mean, the level of control in China is just different. You know, for example, they limited video games to like, 6 hours a week.
Wow.
Some of those big companies like TikTok, like they just took a chunk. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's really, you can't, there's no free press over there. You can't criticize the government and everything else like that. But you've always said that China has done more for Africa than any other country.
I mean, it's true. That's not something anybody can argue with.
Yeah.
I mean, they came, they laid down infrastructure. They actually did something that the European countries been around for 400 years and did nothing. That's why if you see Africa now hasn't been developed. This was the responsibility of France, Great Britain, Italy, Germany. These guys have been in Africa forever, and it's never been developed. China just started putting interest in Africa. Now you have roads, roundabouts. Like, they're actually putting structure down.
No, I feel you, because I spent time in Senegal, in Dakar.
Right.
And which used to be a French colony. You still see people with the French bread and the little French hats and whatever.
French.
But it's dirt roads.
Right.
There's no major corporations there, or at least when I was there, around 2000. I'm sure it's changed.
I mean, yes, it's changed a lot now, but it's still got a grip on the country as if the colonization never left.
Well, let's talk about your background for a second. So, you were born in what, St. Louis?
St. Louis, Missouri.
But then you went back to Senegal as a kid. Yep. So from what age to what age?
Oh, straight right after birth. My dad made sure we was all born in the U.S.
Aha.
So we wouldn't have no immigration problems coming back. Right after birth, he sent us back. And then when we went to school to a point where we kind of was be able to comprehend and understand what was going on, he would ship us back home to the U.S., finish school here, and then every summer we would go back, to Senegal for vacation.
Now, your dad had 4 wives?
Nah, he has 5.
5 wives.
Yeah, he got 5.
So you had, how many moms did you have growing up?
5.
5 moms.
1 mom, but of course.
4 sister wives.
Nah.
No?
That's my dad.
No, that's what I'm saying. Your dad had 4 sister wives, so therefore you had 5.
Well, I had 1 mother.
1 mother, but 4 other
and
mothers were in the vicinity.
And 4 dad's wives.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So how many total siblings between all those wives?
Between them, oh man, about 19.
19?
It's about 19 of us, I can say. Yeah.
Wow. All in the same house?
Nah, of course not.
So spread out to different houses?
Yeah.
What does your dad do for a living?
My pop's a G. He's a musician.
Okay.
He has a huge influence in Senegal. But when he first came to the States, he was working with Miss Catherine Dunham and Alvin Ailey dance group.
Ah, okay.
And then he jumped off of that to go to SIU in East St. Louis as a professor. And then from there, we moved to Miami. So he was working for the University of Miami as a professor there. And then he left from there, went to New York briefly before he went to Atlanta to be a professor at Clark Atlanta. So he was always coming back doing cultural exchange programs. But then he parked in Disney for a while. He stayed there for a few years as well, too, bringing all the entertainment to Disney, all the African entertainment. He scored a lot of films like Lion King and all this stuff. So, yeah, Pops was very active.
Okay, but was he living mostly in the U.S. or in Senegal?
No, mostly in the U.S., because that's where the money was made.
Okay.
But then he'd provide for everyone back home in Senegal.
So the wives would be back in Senegal, and he would be in the U.S.
Yeah, my mom was the only one that was here for many, many, many years, until after we graduated high school. And then that's when my dad's second wife came to join him here in Orlando.
I mean, from your perspective now, growing up in that type of environment, it was very normal for you.
I mean, it's still normal. I mean, it's a culture.
Right. But when you see like the traditional American families, 1 man, 1 wife,
right,
2.5 kids, as opposed to
five
wives, 19 kids,
right.
Does that seem weird to you?
No, actually, what seems weird is that family here ain't valued as much as it is back home.
Huh? Okay.
Here, people are actually afraid to build a family here. People are afraid to, marry here. Like me, that's weird.
Huh.
Like, I don't know how you can be with a woman for past a year, claim to love her, and then don't want to marry her.
Huh.
Like, that's crazy to me. And then it's like, okay, cool. Let's say hypothetically you are married and then you have kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you have more than 2-3 kids within the marriage, everybody looking at you like you're crazy. Like, man, 5 kids? Goddamn. 10 kids? What? Like, I mean, the purpose of family is to grow it, you know what I'm saying? Nurture it, develop it, and keep the family line going. So here, when you look how they value family, to me, I don't understand how they value it on that side of the fence when I come from an area where the bigger your family was, the more prosperous the name creates an opportunity for the family line to survive.
Right, but it's also a money thing, though. In order to have that many, but even in Africa, in order to have 5 wives, you have to support 5 wives because, from what I understand, you have to treat every wife identical. You can't have your young wife in the mansion and your old wife in a hut, right?
Everybody definitely has to be treated equally.
Exactly.
But the difference is the family work together. Like, okay, when you say, let's say hypothetically you say it's about money, right? Okay. How many families do you actually know where everybody chip in to pay the rent, to pay the car notes, to pay insurance, pay phone bills? We're all in the house together. If you're all in the house together, everybody contributes to the lifestyle of everybody being comfortable within the home.
Well, the parents usually contribute. I mean, there's 2-parent homes, right. 2-parent working homes, but usually the kids do not contribute. Usually when they get older, they leave the house.
In America, they get old and leave the house. In Africa, man, they stay in the house. No, like they don't move unless they get married and then they go out the house, start their families, but they're always close by and close, proximity. Now, the more wives you get, obviously, the more you start to open up your environment of your family, but it's always close, knitly, not too far. And if it is, it's visits every week. A week don't pass without you seeing someone in your family or visiting for a weekend with the existing family. So family's always together.
I mean, do the wives ever gang up? Like, have you ever seen like your dad's wives gang up against them? Like they're all gonna oh, he gone this week? Right. All right, powwow. All 5 of us. Close the door. No kids.
See, that's the beauty. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of it because, like, I've never seen it happen ever.
Okay.
I've never seen it happen because it's like when you look at women has this very interesting way of being respectful, but at the same time possessive. Okay. Right? They're very possessive.
I bet.
Right? But if there's another woman that exists under the culture that they understand, they'll know that the other woman exists, but they still, respectful. But they still will have that protective shield within them. But the aspect of that protectiveness, they know that problem between the two only creates a bigger problem within the relationship they have with him. So it goes back to protecting the environment again. Here it's different because everyone's selfish and want mine. They will go back and forth, fight in the middle of the street. And for what? He's still going to do what he's going to do because as a man, he's a breeder. He's built to be who he is. I think here in America is a little bit different because the women don't take the time to understand who they're with. Like, you have to know who you're with and you got to be able to accept everything about him. To be able to love him to your fullest extent, you got to know all his do's, all his don'ts, what he's willing to do, what he ain't willing to do, and most importantly, what you're willing to accept him doing. You have to be truth with yourself first and know what am I willing to accept him doing before I decide to go the full mile with him.
Right.
Once you decide that, then, peace can actually happen. You know what I mean? Because now the rules are set in stone. It's an understanding. Now, at the moment he, goes against that rule, then okay, cool. It is what it is. But until then, I think we always taking these preventative measures of trying to prevent something before it happens. And oftentimes it was never meant to happen in the first place. So you find yourself arguing before it even happened, and it creates a very negative environment to the point where you guys don't last long because everybody's always assuming.
Yeah, I'm wondering, it works well in Africa where that's the environment, but it almost reminds me of the Eddie Murphy stand-up, like the Mfufu, where he finds a woman in Africa, brings her back home, she's butt naked on a zebra, brings her back home, and suddenly it's like The American woman gets in her ear.
Right.
I'm an American woman now.
They get influence.
I want half. You treat me like animal.
When I was young, I remember my mom, my pop actually laughing about that.
Right. Oh, so they actually watched it. Yeah, watched that whole thing.
I mean, that movie is classic.
Right.
But it actually does make sense when you look at it from a standpoint of culture. Right. So America has been lacking a lot of culture. You know, people are still finding themselves here.
Well, I had read, and correct me if I'm wrong, that your dad chose your mom when he was 13 and she was 2 and waited until she was 16 to actually get married?
No, that's a more exaggeration.
Okay.
My dad did choose my mom when she was younger, though.
Okay.
My mom was like 13.
Okay.
And my dad was like, because, okay, when you look at Africa, most marriages are oftentimes, at that time especially, arranged.
Right.
So a member of a family that's close to your family in whatever weight would be like, okay, cool, I'm going to marry my daughter over to you, or marry my daughter to your son. It's always those kind of agreements that was done around those times. So my grandfather was very close to my mom's father. Right? So my mom's father said that my mom, when she gets old enough to marry, I'm going to pass you over, to your son, which was my father. And my father, getting that message, started protecting my mother because he's like, this is my future wife.
Okay.
So he protected her. He educated her. Like, he literally groomed my mom till she was 17, and that's when he married her.
Yeah, it's a whole different world.
Yeah.
It's a whole different world. It's like some Game of Thrones kind of, like House of Dragon. Right. What's happening right now.
Oh, no, compared to what's happening now, it's not even the same.
It ain't even nothing.
Same bracket.
Well, you yourself have 9 kids?
I got 9, 7 boys and 2 girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's always been the rumors about how many wives you have.
Yeah, but I'm gonna let it stay a rumor. I like this. I like the fact that people are guessing now.
Okay.
I love it.
So you can neither confirm nor deny.
I'm not
you
confirming
have
nor
multiple
denying.
wives. I've been asking the same question, I think, for about 10 years.
Right.
I always get the same answer.
Listen, I love it. I love that everybody's guessing. Like, I know he got more, but how many? You go on the line, may see 9, you might see 7, you might see 4. I love it, though.
You love it. Hey, man, if you like it, I love it, too. Well, what's interesting, because there's so many misconceptions about Africa.
Right.
People assume that it's run down, it's poor, everything else like that. But what you actually said recently in an interview, I think it was Bootleg Kev, where you said that you go to certain parts of Africa, like South Africa,
right,
where the white people are screaming about inequality.
Yeah.
They're living in the projects.
They are.
And the black people are in the mansions.
Yes, and this is a true story.
Yeah.
Like, now, since the power has been taken over, if you go into government, it's 90% blacks running it. And the white folks are there screaming more about equality, saying things not fair. If I go to get a job, a black man will get hired before the white man. So exactly what's happening in America is what's happening in South Africa.
White lives matter.
In South Africa, 100%.
Kanye got the right shirt, but in the wrong country. Right. That's what happened. That's what happened.
Right, he should
have sent those shirts over to South Africa, and they would have completely resonated. All the black people are like, "Oh, we understand. Yes, we treat these white people very badly. We need to embrace White Lives Matter. Start an organization."
Yeah, it's so funny.
Hey, man, listen, you can't even be mad at that considering South Africa's history.
Yeah, considering South
the
Africa's
apartheid,
history.
the Sun City, Mandela being locked up for most of his life.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and I remember the whole thing, seeing early interviews about Mandela. His thing was when he became president and he got into power, his first thing was not to punish the white people of the country, is to let's just all try to
let's try to merge it together. And he actually did a very good job doing that.
You actually met him yourself?
No, I never got a chance to meet him, unfortunately.
You wrote a song about him, though.
Huh?
Did you write a song about him? You never got to meet him, though.
I never got a chance to meet him.
That's too bad, huh?
Man, I wish I would have.
Seems like that's a big regret.
Not really a regret, but I really would have loved to meet him.
Yeah.
You know, because I know at the end of the day, we're all going to the same place. So I will meet him soon.
I mean, when you see the whole Kanye, White Lives Matter, the comments he made about going DEFCON 3 on Jews,
Right.
and so forth. And you know Kanye personally.
Yeah.
I've interviewed him before.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your take on all that?
I just, like I tell everybody, I think it's just his personal opinion. You know, I think, you know, that his opinion doesn't always matter, especially in certain instances. And everybody's always had a different road and path to get to why they feel or why they have a certain outlook on certain things. And I think Kanye has been around the world and back, both on earth and spiritually, to the point where a lot of things are just coming and making sense to him in a way that it don't make sense to us. And I think sometimes when you speak from the present, that present has to make sense with the past. And I think when he made that comment, he failed to recognize and give, you can say, the past a credible, basically, he should have put the past, he should have had the past in his account before he made that mark. Because the word Black Lives Matter wasn't just a phrase somebody just woke up one day and just made. This was a history of behavior, a history of racism, a history of just, you know, instances that led up to us saying, man, Black lives fucking matter. Like, we're not just, you know what I mean? Like, we're not, you know, the deer that you just hunt and just shoot down because we just existing, you know? But it's like, it's a lot of history that's attached to that phrase. And I think when Ye, you know, pushed out for whatever reason, he was only thinking about that moment. You know, I mean, we all know every life matter, for sure.
Yeah.
But in order for all lives to matter today, specifically Black lives have to be corrected for everybody else to even to feel safe enough to matter. Because you already know, it's a ticking time bomb before people stop protesting and stop having real conversations and getting to the point where they're, you know, they just like snap. You know what I mean? So we have to be able to manage these conversations.
I mean, you yourself, have you ever had any really bad situations with police?
I've had a lot of rough situations with police.
Okay, what was the worst?
The worst? Yeah, I got beat up.
Beat up by the police?
Straight up by the police.
Was this during the carjacking days? Well,
the
car theft days.
It was during the carjacking days, but I wasn't in a stolen car. It was a basic traffic stop, you know? And just because I asked, why are you stopping me? I was asked to get pulled out the car, and they beat my ass.
Really?
Yeah. And locked me up.
With weapons?
With the stick.
With a stick?
Yeah.
So they just beat you with batons?
Yeah. Told me that I had no right to talk to him like that.
Threw you in jail?
Threw me in jail. I got out on the self-bond. But to me, at that time, I didn't feel like it was even worth fighting because it ain't like you would hear about it. I wasn't an artist then.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've gotten roughed up by police, but never to that extent.
Right.
You know, I've gotten thrown against the hood and stuff like that and gotten arrested, but not beaten up really badly.
Oh, yeah. Man, them boys will fuck you up.
I mean, how'd you feel? Were you sitting in that cell knowing that you just got beat up by, was it white cops?
Yep.
In what, Atlanta?
In Atlanta.
In Atlanta. So you got, you know, the Jim Crow South.
Yep.
You got beat up by a bunch of white cops. You're just some regular kid. Nobody knows who you are.
Right.
So you just said,
and
fuck it, I'm going to just accept this
It's
L.
their word against yours, right? And then you got to understand.
There's no social media, so you can't even publicize it.
Right. And my life wasn't quite legit. So it's like, nigga, you might just shut up, because if they start digging up some shit that you that you caught up with, nigga, just take the ass whooping and keep it moving, bro.
A real charge, yeah.
All right.
I mean, when you look at what's happening in Atlanta right now with the DA and the RICO cases.
Right.
And there's multiple RICO cases now. It started off with the YSL RICO case, but now there's like the drug-rich RICO case. Now there's other RICO cases they're saying they're about to pull up with various rapper affiliations. Because you and Young Thug actually have a history.
Yeah, that's my dog, man.
You know, you were working with him during like the stoner era, was his first big hit.
Mm-hmm.
And you actually really embraced him.
Yeah.
You said that he reminded you of an African.
No, he did.
Yeah.
He was, that boy, he's probably the most talented kid I ever ran against and the most fearless when it comes to creativity.
Huh. Okay.
That's what made me love him so much from an artist standpoint. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, he was always attached to the street. He just couldn't get off of it. I mean, that was his life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, we dug into this case. I brought in George Sheedy, one of the Atlanta journalists who kind of broke down everything. The charges are ugly. Yeah. And people like to focus on the rap lyrics and the social media posts, but there's a lot more that goes into it. There's a lot of phone taps. There's a lot of witnesses. There's triangulation of phones, putting people in certain physical locations and so forth. I mean, when you see something like that happening with, 28 people indicted, Gunna just got denied bond again.
Wow.
So, and he's a nonviolent offender, essentially. They're saying that this trial, if they're lucky, will start in the middle of next year.
That is crazy.
If they're lucky, middle of next year, because the DA is actually not releasing all their findings right now. They're keeping it close, so they're going to try to release it last minute so that all the defense lawyers need time to plow through it all and figure out their defense. So they're, at one point, Thug's lawyers might have to petition to push it back themselves just so they could have a proper defense.
Right.
I mean, when you see the clusterfuck that's happening over there with people that you personally know, do you know Gunna or any of the other guys?
No, I mean, I've met Gunna, but we don't know each other personally.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
When you see that happening in Atlanta, what do you think? And you live in Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, if I can be all the way candid, it's almost like I would hate to say that I saw it coming because the behavior of a lot of rappers and artists today are more behaviors as gangsters than it is entertainers. And I think most of them feel like they have to behave that way to be popping, or they have to relive or live whatever there is they're speaking on these records. So some of the stuff you can say, okay, cool, it ain't quite fair, to be picked up on lyrics. But if lyrics are actually being connected to real crimes.
Well, like the shooting of YFN Lucci's mother. Right. YFN Lucci's mother got shot. And then later on, Young Thug had a lyric that said, "I shot at your mother, now he don't mention me." Now, you could say that's not related. You could say that's just art.
That's all speculation.
It's all speculation, but it looks bad on paper to a jury.
It looks even worse when things are on record being spoken of information that the feds ain't put to the public. That's where it gets dangerous.
Right.
Because they didn't never mention that. You mentioned in their records, but when they, when they're at the crime scene, this is nothing that they release to the public. So how would you know that? So this is the hard part, and this is what is scary because that's something you can't really defend yourself from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's ugly. I mean, look, Casanova 2 times just accepted a plea deal in a RICO case. He's waiting to get sentenced. YFN Lucci is locked up over a RICO case. No plea deal. Has to go to trial. And, God knows what's going to happen at that point.
I would just say fight it. Go to trial.
At this point, yeah, you got to fight it.
If you're innocent, fight it and go to trial.
Yeah. And I remember, we have a lawyer, Mo Gangat, that comes in and talks about these cases. He said that this same case in New York would get thrown out. Even if it didn't, everyone would get bond. But in Atlanta, all 28 people are denied bond. They're all going to sit in jail.
Yeah, that means they have a lot more than you think they got. Because I don't care what state you go to. If they got real evidence, they're not letting you go.
Yeah.
So whatever that dude talking about, he must don't know what they got. Because, they're not going to embarrass themselves. These are high-profile influencers.
Yeah.
People's careers will be fucked if they made the wrong decision. So it's a bunch of
multimillionaires sitting in county jail right now.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Believe me, these kids got the power to fight back.
Yeah.
So they have to have something to not give them bond. It's something there.
Well, yeah. I mean, like Boosie said, though, the reason why he doesn't think anyone's getting bond is that,
I love Boosie, by the way.
Yeah, me too.
I'll fuck with Boosie, man.
Yeah. Y'all just do some music together. I'll hook y'all up.
Yeah, hook me up. That's my nigga.
I'm going to hit him right after this. They say Akon wants to work with you. he said that you can't take 28 eggs and shake them, expect none of them to crack.
Absolutely. He's right.
I was like, man, I don't know, bro. Once it go to trial, and I hear the evidence and see how bad it is. But like I told him, it's hard to put 28 eggs in a crate and shake all of them and none of them don't crack.
He's right.
He said they're keeping everyone there and just sitting around and saying, someone go and tell.
Vlad,
you don't need everyone to tell.
Vlad, can I tell you something?
Go ahead.
Boosie dead ass right. Why? Because there's 3 generations of certain street behavior. The third generation back in the 70s, you wasn't cracking out a single egg.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't happening. They had specific codes that everybody abided by, and if you violated the code, it was repercussions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that flew into the 80s. When all those gangsters in the 80s got either shot or put away, it was another generation that came in. Now, this generation inherited a little bit of that, but for the most part, they had their own mind too. So they had half and half going on, right? That generation went from early 90s into the 2000s. Now, from the early 80s to the 90s, from the 90s, the mid generation from the 70s up into the 90s, when them gangsters got put away and some got shot and killed or whatever and went out, that generation that went into the 2000s, well, all that generation that grew up without a male figure or without a role model or without an OG. See, I was in the middle generation where there was half and half. We had our own mind, but we always went back to the OGs and got advice. Or we got permission before moving a certain kind of way. They'd be like, young blood, don't do this, don't do that, or nah, whatever. This generation didn't have no OGs. They had nothing. They had nobody to speak with. All they had was stories that other people told, stories that rappers sang about that predicted the lives of the guys from the 80s that went away. So everybody wanted to be the 50 Cents of the world, or the Rick Rosses of the world, or the BMFs of the world. But these are guys that did real time, was real active, and made it popular enough for you to know about it to put it in your record. Then this generation, which didn't know, they knew the concept of what a gangster was, but they didn't know how to be one. They didn't know the rules that came with it. The first rule is to keep your mouth shut. Period. Rule number 2, you never roll deep in any kind of caper. If you ain't doing it by yourself, because you're never gonna squeal on yourself. If you can't do it by yourself, you got to make sure you can do it with somebody that you know for a fact is willing to die with you.
Some people squeal on themselves, but
But I mean, no. But these are the rules that they don't know.
Yeah.
Clearly, because they confessing on records.
Yeah.
They confessing. Nobody don't need to snitch on you. You told it. You said it all. Because you want everybody to know that you this gangster. So it ain't no secret that in Atlanta they got all this evidence. They listening to the songs and hearing, and then they corroborating it with real investigations, and it's all coming back true. So if half these guys are who they really say on these records, they're in trouble. But if they not, then they got a shot.
Yeah, man, it's an ugly. Now, I know a lot of information that I didn't put out there just to protect certain people that I know, but it's a lot worse than you think it is. And at the end of the day, everyone's like, free this person, free that person. It's nice to say because you like their music, but ultimately it's going to come down to what did this person actually do? If this person deserves, if this person really is killing people and really is involved in a lot of violent activities, they're probably not going to be freed.
Well, this is the thing, Vlad. A lot of them, that's not who they really are. These are kids, man. They still young. It's like most of it is being done to, you can say, impress their peers. Because, man, I know most of them.
Yeah.
Man, they the most humble, good-hearted, real good people. But when you listen to the music, you would think they were serial killers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, listen, I fell victim to this myself, right? When you start to get a certain amount of power money, respect. People start to, hover around you and they want to be around. They want to be with you when you move around. And you got a group of guys that are willing to do violent things around you. It's not that hard to find people like this. I've had people like this around me. And, you got people you don't like that talk shit about you. And these guys are more than willing to do this on your behalf.
That's so unfortunate.
You don't have to do it yourself anymore. It doesn't matter how well good of a fist fighter you are, because you don't have to, you think these guys are actually fighting people? None of them are actually putting in their own work. They're sending people on dummy missions and so forth. And I fell into this, when I first started, making money. And I remember getting into a situation that, still to this day, I have problems with people over this situation where people almost got hurt. And I'm like, I need to cut this shit out. Let me get out of this mode completely and never be like this again, because I'm about to get caught up.
Right.
But I was also in my 30s, and I also had something to lose by this point. If I was in my early 20s and didn't give a fuck,
turned out different, right?
Like a Kodak Black who really is coming up as a young kid and is still has certain things that he wants to prove and so forth, it's a lot easier to get caught up in this dumb shit.
Right.
And then you end up in prison.
Period.
Right? And that's how the story ends, essentially.
Right.
And you see the level of violence and with people who are multimillionaires.
Right.
Multimillionaires with viable legal income streams.
Right. Legal income streams.
They could do a show and get $100,000 like that. They could drop a song and make $100,000 like that. A feature? Come on. Like, how much is a Young Thug feature these days?
Oh, you're going to pay at least between $45,000-$50,000 in cash.
That's probably the homie price.
Right.
If the record label goes through.
Oh, if it goes to the label,
if it goes to the label, you could probably drop 100 easy.
Yeah.
Well, because you talked about recently how you charged $200,000 for a hook.
In my day, in my prime, I was
in your prime, $200,000 for a hook.
Yeah.
And Young Thug is kind of in the same ballpark of
right.
of one of the hottest artists. Everyone wants to fuck with him.
Without a doubt.
And to see this and to see these guys, and I remember the whole thing, like his lawyer was like, yo, he's being held in inhumane conditions and so forth. And the DA responded, this is a detention facility. It's not the Ritz-Carlton.
Wow.
What do you want us to do? It's a jail. We don't care how rich he is.
Right.
He's not going to get a special cell. He's not going to get frette sheets. He's going to be right there with everyone else.
Right.
Well, I recently interviewed Teddy Riley.
I love Teddy, man.
Yeah, that was an epic interview. So we kind of go through his whole story. And of course, he worked with Michael Jackson on the Dangerous album.
Right.
And some other songs. And, we went through the whole history, their whole relationship and so forth. And after Michael Jackson died, he got contacted by Sony to work on the Michael album.
Right.
Which you're actually on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's sort of an interesting kind of twist that happened. You know what I'm talking about already, right?
No, actually I don't.
Okay, so when that album was put together, this guy came forward. His name was Casio. He was this Persian guy who said that Michael Jackson stayed with him for a few months and recorded 12 records at his home studio. These records were, sent over to Sony. The foundation signed off on them. So then Teddy Riley starts to work on these records, starts to, do the production, do the mixing and so forth. They get released.
They got leaked or released?
They got released originally. 50 Cent was on one of the records, Monster and so forth. Quincy Jones spoke up and said, these are not Michael Jackson's vocals.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that.
Jermaine Jackson spoke up, said, this is not my brother's voice. And at first, Teddy was like, Quincy Jones is old. He can't even hear me talk. He's not going to tell me. He doesn't even know who he's talking to. He doesn't know Michael Jackson's vocals like I do, so forth and so forth.
Right.
But as time went on and more stuff came forward. And I asked Teddy flat out, I said, those vocals right now in 2022, are they real or are they fake? He said one song was real. He said all the other vocals were fake.
Wow.
And they actually had a pull. If you look at the album now, it's only a few songs. All the original songs actually got pulled, and there was a lawsuit around it, I believe, and so forth. I remember I talked to Rodney Jerkins about this. And I'm like, do you know about this? And Rodney was Michael's producer at the time that he died, right? They were working on a bunch of stuff together. And I'm like, these vocals, real or fake? He goes, fake, because I know all about these vocals. I'd heard these songs. It came from like an intern or something.
That's crazy. I remember hearing something like that, but I never knew the specifics of the story. That's crazy.
Because your song that you worked on Michael's album, you guys were actually in the studio.
We were together. Yeah, we were together.
So that is 100% legitimate.
Without a doubt.
You're right. Because he said, what did Teddy say? He said Hollywood was the only song that he had that he said was real. Because you could hear like, all the behind the scenes
But Mike's
stuff.
ad-libs are, can't nobody you can't even, it's hard to duplicate. You get the acapellas, you'll know off top if that's Mike or not. Because he sang in a rhythm.
Yeah.
Like he didn't sing normal like everybody else. It was a rhythm. Like he'd be damn near beatboxing as he's singing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I remember when I interviewed Dark Child about this, I said, what is it different about Michael than anyone else that you've worked with? And he's worked with Whitney and he's worked with everybody. He's got Grammys and so forth. He goes, well, when Michael is in the studio, when he's in the booth, he is dancing like he's on stage.
Yeah, it's rhythm.
To the point where when we go cut, he has to take off his shirt and is drenched in sweat and he has to put on a new shirt.
Right.
You've seen this personally.
Yeah, Mike is in rhythm. Like he's always in rhythm. He feels it in his soul. Yeah.
I mean, how do you feel about these fake vocals now that you hear the story?
Man, I'm shocked. I don't even know how they got that far.
Yeah, your jaw just kind of...
Yeah, I'm like, wait a what?
True story.
That's
true
But
story.
I remember hearing something like that around that time, but I thought it was just the media kind of, trying to... No. But then I remember I did hear a song. It was online. It was on the internet, actually. And I was like, that don't sound like Mike.
Yeah.
But I thought it was just something that they were just making up to kind of, affect his legacy and shit, I didn't know that was a real thing.
Nah, it's crazy, right? Because I'm talking to Rodney and I'm like, how does Sony... Because Sony brought it to him before they put it out and he told them it was fake.
Wow.
And I'm like, why would they bring it to you and then take that risk with the biggest artist of all time?
Right.
And
whose
he's like,
voice is recognizable, by the way.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
There's
an army of fans.
Right.
He goes, man, listen, Vlad, like you gotta understand that at these labels, these aren't music people that are running these labels. These are marketing guys.
Right.
These are
And
guys with business degrees. They're not looking at it from the music standpoint. They're looking at it from a business standpoint. And if, the Jackson Foundation, they got the signature, they're like, cool, we could go do some business with this.
That's crazy. So the estate let that pass?
I think initially just slipped past them.
Right.
And then once it got out and the Quincy Joneses started to get
the
involved
estate
in
is
the
very
conversation.
Aggressive. They super aggressive. So I'm surprised.
They are. Well, I think Michael actually knew this guy. The Casio family was someone he actually knew.
Right,
it was just that this guy essentially, was able to create the scam and probably get a huge payday for selling these vocals. How did you and Michael Jackson actually meet?
Actually, we shared the same attorney.
Aha. Okay.
Yeah, and it was my attorney who connected me and Mike together. At first I thought he was bullshitting. Like, honestly, I hung up on him when he first called me, talking about Michael Jackson. I want to work with you.
Just hung up, fuck out of here.
Right. But then he called me back with Mike on three-way.
Okay.
And as soon as I heard his voice, I was like, oh, man. I hung up again because I was surprised. Like, oh, shit, that's Mike. So imagine getting hung up on twice. And then they hung up and he's like, no, seriously, it's me, Mike. It's Mike. And I was like, shit. So, man, as we spoke, man, he invited me to come out to Vegas to rock with him. And from the moment we met, it was like as if we've known each other for years. It was like instant connection.
Yeah. And how many songs did you guys actually put together?
We put together about 4 or 5 records. A million ideas, though. Because we was always in ideas. One thing about Mike, every minute is another idea. So you got to kind of confine him to focus on the idea before the new idea that's about to come up, right? So the challenge was just getting them focused on this song first. So I'm like, yeah, drop all those ideas on this song though. You know what I'm saying? Dope, let's put it on this song though. So I was able to complete it. But and everyone who's works with Mike will know, he's so creative. You gotta harness him and focus him on one thing as we go, because he's thinking not only the song, he's thinking the video, he's thinking the performance, he's thinking what song comes after that. Like he thinks in a whole big 360, conversions way of thinking. So it was really just kind of molding him down to one idea till we finish and then move to the next one. But just to keep his energy flowing and the creativity level going, as he came with new ideas, we'll start a new session, start a new idea like this. You know what I mean? Then eventually bring him back to the original one.
Yeah, and you actually said that you guys would have just regular casual conversations, and he was into, I guess, the supermodel type females.
Yeah, Mike was human. Like he was human. He liked everything we liked.
The tall, but he wasn't into the thick women, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he liked supermodels.
Supermodels,
Yeah,
tall,
he liked
thin,
supermodels.
and so forth.
But it all made sense though. Now I know why he always had like supermodels in his videos. You know what I'm saying? Like he had the supermodels in the
Campbell.
video. Right. You know what I'm saying? It made sense.
Yeah, and since our last interview, I interviewed Tom Messero, who was his lawyer that defended him successfully in that whole case. And I remember just going through the whole story and so forth and kind of digging into the background and everything. And I remember, because there was always, from the outside looking in, you're like, well, was the allegations true? Was he really into little kids? He
wasn't, man.
Well, clearly.
He was nowhere near that.
Right. But clearly some of the stuff he did wasn't really appropriate for an adult
That's
man.
all bullshit, Vlad. I'm not gonna let you start there.
I'm not
Vlad, listen, I live
Listen. No, I'm gonna finish this. I'm gonna finish this.
But Vlad, because I don't want you to finish it and the shit go all over the internet on some negative shit. You know how that shit works.
Okay.
Mike's legacy got to be protected, bro. The nigga was he was a true soul, like pure-hearted.
Yeah.
Nothing negative about him. Right. Everything all the love that he came towards like kids was genuine because he wanted kids to progress and grow to be the best they could be.
Yeah.
Obviously he was a kid star, so he probably didn't get a lot of those things that normal kids get. So I can probably see where he was pulling from. But he genuinely just loved to see kids healthy and in a good place. He always wanted kids to be happy.
Well, yeah, listen, I had Jason Lee here
the
other day from Hollywood Unlocked. And what he told me, which was actually interesting, I actually looked into this. I didn't realize the magnitude of the story. But Jason Lee was living in Stockton in the late 80s. And that was actually the first mass shooting in a school occurred in Stockton.
Right, I remember.
Michael Jackson came to the school. This is 1989 Michael Jackson. So imagine, this is like the hat with the, the black armband, the silk suit, silk shirt. Michael Jackson showed up at the actual school, spoke with the families, paid for the doctor bills of the kids that were in the hospital who survived, and really just offered moral support to everybody.
Michael Jackson, one day I was getting ready for school and they said, Michael Jackson's on his way to Stockton. He's coming to meet with the kids. He's coming to the community. And I thought that was huge. He was already huge to me as a young black kid who danced in Stacey Adams and had the little curly hair and, was looking up to this guy like, damn, he's fly. And so when he came to Stockton, I just really got a sense of compassion and humanity and community, and like, that was the biggest lesson of selflessness that I could ever imagine, because he didn't have to come there. And what he did was he met with all the kids to say, hey, your life matters. You're still here. You got to keep going. He paid for all the medical bills. He paid for all the funerals. He met with the staff. He went to the hospital to meet with the families. Like, that was something I had never understood. So I fell in love with him then.
And this is a story that you don't really hear very much about because it gets so eclipsed by all the bullshit and everything else like that.
Absolutely.
But Michael did in fact, truly care about kids. And I remember when I interviewed Tom Messero, we talked about how that first allegation came and he settled that allegation. People were in his ear like, listen, Michael, just give him a couple $1 million. You're going to make way more money afterwards. It'll go away and so forth. In retrospect, Michael told him that was the worst decision he ever made in his life.
Right.
Because instead of it going into the rearview mirror, it opened up a door of people saying, oh,
he got to be guilty if he.
well, there's a check associated with this.
Right.
you know, and then you have the whole Leaving Neverland thing where the same kid that got on the stand and said that Michael never did anything to me, you know, he was always just a great person.
Right.
Now suddenly the story changes and he's suing for $100 million,
Right.
which ended up getting thrown out in court anyways.
Wow. That's interesting, man.
Did you guys ever have conversations about how he always felt attacked and how everyone always like...
Yeah, he did feel that, that, you know, the powers that be, he used to always say, treated him unfairly. And he used to always say, man, you know, those are not good people. They're not good people, Akon. They're not good people. Be very careful because they will use you until they can't use you no more, and then they'll find a way to destroy you, to grab everything that you have access to or possess, because they feel that he had too much access and real estate in the music catalogs, you know, in the arena. Because Mike was a very smart businessman.
Right, he owned like half a Sony ATV.
Yeah, he was very, very smart. So he had more power than a black man should have in the business, put it that way. So he always felt like, you know, they were out to get him. Yeah.
I mean, did that inspire you to sort of build up your catalog and own everything? And...
That inspired me to know how much catalogs are worth. You know what I mean? So it makes me think a lot before moving my catalogs around, and how do I maximize on this real estate? Because even, you know, I mean, the future of the world is all content.
Yeah.
You know, so when you got a global name like mine, you got to be very careful of how you manage it.
Right, because you've never sold any of your catalog?
Now I held on to everything.
Okay. Have you had offers?
Oh yeah, they still coming.
$100 million offers?
More than that. I got a huge catalog, bro.
I know this.
Like,
this is why I'm asking.
But that's what I'm saying. If they offer you that kind of money, imagine how much.
What's the biggest offer you've gotten for your catalog?
I ain't trying to get. You forgot what generation we in. These little niggas don't care.
Well, but it's more than 100 million.
Well, that'd be all.
It's more than 100 million.
No, hold on. I just turned down.
You turned down 100 million.
I don't know if that's what it's worth. That's just what
But you turned down 100.
I know what it's worth. I believe it's worth billions.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you look at all the stuff that's coming in the future with the metaverse and all of this. It's all content based.
No, listen.
So why let go of it doesn't make sense.
I mean, I've gotten offers, significant offers to not even sell my catalog. Well, I've gotten offers to sell my catalog, but even to like own the monetization of it for a certain number of years.
Yeah, now that's smart. I would do that. Because otherwise it'd just be sitting in your laptop for another number of years.
Well, no, it's not sitting on your laptop. It's sitting on YouTube. It's making money.
Right, it's right.
Right, so it's a little bit different.
But it also depends on what you plan to do. Like,
right.
You know what I'm saying?
I mean, like, we did the math. So we had this big, you know, multi-million dollar deal on the table. They're ready to cut the check and so forth.
Right.
And we said, all right, let's just do the math on everything. Let's just figure out exactly what's going to happen after taking this check. And once we figured it out, they're going to take about 25% over the course of
a certain amount of time.
Of this time.
Right.
25% of revenue. And we were like, we don't need this money.
Right.
So why would I give up 25% of millions of dollars
if you don't need
when I could take a loan
right,
for about 5 or 10%?
Right.
And not let go of anything.
Exactly.
And keep all the monetization the whole time and just pay back this loan.
Right.
What's the point?
Because the monetization gonna pay the loan back for you anyway.
Exactly.
Right.
And what's interesting, right? In this whole situation, I'm not gonna put any names out here, but the guy that was working with me was the head of one of the biggest publishing companies in the world, right? He came in to sort of help me and get other counter offers and so forth. And I remember I told him I'm turning it down. And he was like kind of shocked, right? And I was like, well, with all the artists you've worked with all the hundreds of millions of dollars of publishing deals that you've made, how many artists end up walking away from these publishing deals? I said 0.
Right.
0. Every single person will take the publishing deal at some point.
Yeah.
And that just blew my mind, right?
No, but I can tell you why.
Explain.
All right. Most artists aren't business people. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, an artist's lifespan is only but so long. Your publisher is only going to generate a certain amount of money, but for so much amount of time.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at the pattern in which you make hit records or you've released hits, you got to also see you different. You're just content.
Mm-hmm.
And you're juicy content. That can go on forever. But a hit record, hit, miss,
Yeah.
and you ain't popping no more, that value not only, it don't continue going up or it don't even stay there. It goes down.
Yeah, I mean, you get the occasional unicorn record that
Right.
continues, Baby Got Back, or,
Yeah,
like
you know
the
what I'm
$100 million. Yeah, I mean, Sir Mix-a-Lot said he made $100 million off that one song, Baby
I
Got Back,
believe
but that was a unicorn record that
Right.
continues to get used in commercials,
Right,
remade, and so
thanks,
forth.
and all that.
How many Baby Got Backs
It's out there.
does 100 artists have in their catalog? Usually 0.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So for
Usually
most
0.
artists, it's actually smart to get that big check now and invest that big check into something that's going to be sustainable.
Yeah, and
right.
how often do they actually do that, though?
They don't often do it.
They
now,
don't often.
Producers and writers, that's different.
Which you are as well.
Right. Now, I'm looking from a producer and a writer standpoint because that can go on for as long as I continue to write or continue to produce. Now, I'm in your arena. That's just creating content. It never ends. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, honestly, I think that at a certain, I mean, it's already happening to a certain degree. Like the serious YouTubers are going to surpass the serious musicians.
Oh, 100%.
It's already happening.
It's about
Because I have, okay, look, I know in my head, based on the questions I put together, about how many views this interview will get.
Right.
Right? I might be off by a few 100,000, maybe by 1 million views here and there, but I know it's not going to get 1,000 views.
Right.
I also know it's not going to get 1 billion views.
Right.
Right? But doing this for 15 years, I have a general idea about how many views I will get with a certain artist.
Right.
You as an artist, you could get, Southside to do the beat. You can get Lil Baby to do the feature and Future to do the hook, and you do the verses, and that song can still flop.
Absolutely.
For whatever reason, the magic is not there, is not a hit. It doesn't matter. Yes, Lil Baby's fans will check it out one time.
Right.
The
But
fans and the
out of
various people will check it
curiosity-
out, and there'll be a spurt, but it won't be a hit song like a Smack That
Right.
or a Mr. Lonely, because for whatever reason, the magic is not there, and it's lightning in a bottle, and you can't always, did you know all the hit records that you made are going to be hit records?
Honestly, at that time, it wasn't me. It was more about me just expressing myself.
Right. So you
I didn't even know what a hit record was. I just
Exactly.
wanted everybody to sing along.
Exactly. So no one really knows.
No one
every,
really knows.
Every artist ultimately, I mean, Michael Jackson said he knew Thriller was going to be as big as it got,
Right.
but that's, once again, a unicorn kind of project.
Right.
Right? So you don't know what you're going to get once you put that record out.
Absolutely.
I have a little bit more predictability in my business.
Right.
So with me, I feel it's a little bit easier, especially if you're talking about, and then you take the established artist out of the equation and you make it a new artist,
Right.
and then it becomes 100 times more hard
Right.
to figure out whether this person will pop
Right.
off.
Because they have no data attached to them.
Because how many artists have you signed over the years? 100?
No, actually, that's what's interesting. In my days, I probably signed about maybe 15.
French
about-
Montana,
So-
Red Cafe,
Right, so-
T-Pain,
right.
Lady Gaga,
Right.
Jeffree Star.
Right.
See, and along the way, I mean, there are stars along the way, but then
Right.
Jeffree Star never made it in music.
No, but
He
made
did
it,
well in makeup.
he made it in cosmetics.
Right, but you were not a part of that.
Yes, I was.
Oh, wait, what?
Yes.
What?
Bro, I'm
You
a
get
business
part of the you
I'm
get
a
part of Jeffree
business-
Star's makeup money?
businessman. When I do deals, I use music as a vehicle to
I
get
take
the
my
money.
hat off to you.
Understand? The music for Jeffrey never worked.
Right.
So we realized we had to pivot towards what did work, and that was his YouTube views. And what was he doing on YouTube? Makeup.
You
So
got a
this-
piece of Jeffree
I said,
Star's
Jacob,
makeup.
Jake, that's where you need to be, right there, selling makeup.
See, I just assumed that he left what you guys got going and just started his own thing, but no,
Right.
that's not the case.
Never was the case.
Okay, but you've had some artists that did not go anywhere.
All the artists that I've signed all went where? They all went somewhere. Every last one of them.
Not all of them became superstars.
But they didn't become either superstars or not. Like prime example, Rock City. Perfect
Right.
example.
There you go. Yeah.
Okay, I signed them all together, but they wasn't like very successful artists that I thought they would be. Instead, they became very successful songwriters.
Yeah.
Right. So my way of thinking was always like, okay, cool. If the record don't work in America, we got the whole rest of the world to work the record. Okay, cool. The record ain't work globally. Okay, you're great writers. Okay, cool. Start writing songs for everybody. It works there. Let's say writing didn't work. Okay, you guys are great producers, T-Pain. You're a great producer. Let's produce for everybody. So we never limit their talents to just what they want to do. We limit it to what will work, but what you're good at the same time too, because your calling may be what you don't know. Everybody think their calling is being a superstar, but guess not. Your calling may be managing a superstar.
I mean,
You know
I'm
what I'm
looking
saying?
down the roster right now. OG Boo Dirty, who I interviewed with
OG
you.
Boo Dirty. Yep.
He never blew up.
Yeah, locally he did though.
Locally, he did.
Ain't nobody in Memphis that don't know OG Boo Dirty.
Right.
And mind you, OG Boo Dirty was the one that introduced me to Moneybag.
Moneybag Yo?
Moneybag Yo.
He signed to,
He signed to Yo Gotti.
but he used to be signed to you?
We had him first,
Okay.
but we never signed him.
Huh.
Ain't that crazy? OG came to me and said, yo, Con, he's the next nigga. Like, but at the time, I wasn't focused. OG came to the house. I mean, he brought Moneybag with him. And Moneybag had a record, bro. Till this day, if he released it, I always said that was going to be his biggest record. It's called I Need a Plug.
Okay.
I heard that record, I went fucking crazy. Like, I was like, oh, this record is out of here. This kid is gone. That's what convinced me to what it was. Then I flew off to overseas and come back for like 6 months later. By the time I came back, he was already moving on mixtape circuits. But then again, I ain't want to be dealing with rappers. So OG kept saying, yo, man, I'm telling you, this nigga going. He going. Get him, Con, get him. I said, I know, man, but I don't know if I want to be dealing with no rappers, man. OG was like, all right, bro, I'm telling you, you're going to regret it. Not saying I regret it, but OG called it.
Yeah.
OG Boo Dirty called that shit.
Well, Dollar was signed to you.
Yeah, Dollar was on his way out before he passed away. He got shot, unfortunately.
Yeah. In LA.
Yeah.
Once again.
Again.
It was a fucked up situation.
It was.
I looked into it. I guess he had gotten into it with some dude in Atlanta.
It's always
And then
repercussions.
he ran into the same dude again and tried to run up on him. This time the guy had a pistol on him, ended up killing him in, I guess, what ended up being self-defense.
Yeah.
I don't know the details, but I'm sure you know a few more details than me.
I don't know the details either.
But it was a fucked up situation.
Yeah, it was.
Unfortunately, he was added to a long list of rappers killed in LA, with PNB Rock being the latest addition to that. Did you know PNB Rock at all?
That one broke my heart.
You know?
Yeah, I knew him very well. I used to love.
Really?
That kid was he was amazing, man.
Huh.
He was nowhere near reaching his potential. That kid, he had it. He had it. Yeah, PNB definitely had it.
I mean, when you and I do interviews together, you're usually by yourself.
I'm always by myself.
But we also, when you're coming here, there's no bullshit involved.
Right.
Right? You and I go back 20 years. Like, I don't have security here with me right now.
Right.
Because
it's
we
us.
know each other.
Right.
Unless you bring someone who hates me.
Then that's different. But I would never bring nobody
You
here.
never bring anybody, right? Because me and you have that respect level.
Right.
And I wouldn't bring anyone that potentially would bother you, right?
Absolutely.
But as a whole, you understand the repercussions of, you have a house in LA, so you move around this area.
Right.
When you look at what happened in his particular situation, like, for example, would you pull up, in your $150,000 car in South Central and grab some chicken and waffles?
Absolutely not. Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to, glorify my success with people that's still struggling.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. I think it's a certain level of how you communicate with people. And sometimes the communication can get distorted because it almost feel like it's this nana attitude. I made it and you didn't. You know what I mean? Like, most people may not take it that way, but I always calculate what if they do. Some people are more fortunate than others. Some been in the game long enough to work hard enough to get to where they are. But for the people that don't know your story, they just naturally assume that you feel comfortable enough to come in my hood and celebrate your success in my face. You know what I'm saying? And that's just how some people take it. There's some people that will welcome you and be like, I'm proud of you, man. Damn, you motivate me, man. How can I get there? There's some people like that, more people like that than others, but it's the others that you got to watch out for because some people believe the world owe them everything. And because you made it, they get upset.
Well, you used to be on the flip side. You were the broke kid stealing cars from people who had more money than you.
Right.
Right? And you figured you didn't feel bad about it.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't know if they had more money than me or not. I just wanted the car to make money.
Right. But the kind of cars you were stealing.
Oh, yeah. They
were high end.
They probably was leasing them things.
Yeah, exactly.
I said, don't worry about it. Insurance will cover it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got carjacked.
Right. Then I got carjacked.
This happened, what, last year?
This happened last year.
Yeah, after our interview.
Yeah, it happened last year. And it was interesting because when it happened to me, I just, you know what? I was like, you know what? I get it. And I honestly wasn't even mad. It's almost like I accepted it because I expected it.
So what happened exactly?
So I was literally getting gas. I'm watching the LED screen that's on the new pumps now. That kind of, you watching commercials and news, and I'm pumping the gas. And next thing you know, my hand just flies out, and the pump flies off.
Oh, he jumped in the car while you were pumping gas.
He jumped in the car while I was pumping the gas. I didn't even hear the door close.
What kind of car was it?
It was a Range Rover.
Okay.
So my back was turned, so they didn't know it was me, clearly. Because later, when I found out where my car was, we went to go pick it up. And you're like, man, that's you, Con.
Wait. Wait, so you tracked the car.
Come on, I used to be a car thief, so you know, you can't steal a car from a car thief. I'm trying to tell the cops where my car at, but they wouldn't go pick it up, so I had to go pick it up myself.
Okay, so you tracked the car.
Right.
You showed up, what, at a house?
No, it was in Forest Park, at some projects in Forest Park.
So you went to the projects.
Yeah.
And what, the guy was still in the car?
Nah, he wasn't. I actually parked outside the car with two of my homies.
Okay.
And I was waiting for him to come out the car, to come out to the car.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you see, windows looking out. So I'm like, damn, they must know we're here because, damn, we picked the wrong cars to be parked out front because clearly they know all the cars here. So now I was like, this ain't gonna be no way. They ain't gonna come out. So we after 4 hours, they didn't come out. I said, let me just call the cops to come get the car. So we called the police. We waited for them. They came, inspected the car. They put it on the tow truck, took it. I had my spare, so I could have just took it from there, but unfortunately, it told me it has to go through this whole process where they got to fingerprint it and process it. And I was like, don't have to worry about that. I'm not pressing no charges. Okay. They said, but yeah, it still has to be done as procedure. So I said, okay, cool.
Okay, but then you met the guy who actually stole your car?
No, I haven't met him.
Oh, okay.
I never met him. But I met by phone 4 or 5 other people that met him, that knew him. And then when they found out it was my car, that's when they called me. And I was like, damn, Con, we didn't know that was you. They was connected to the guy that stole the car. But it was just, and I was like, man, this sounds good, bro. You ain't got to worry about it.
I mean, you got your car back.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
You know, because it could have been worse. There's some people that don't make it out of jackets. If these dudes were ignorant, while my back was turned getting gas, they could have easily, God forbid, shot me in the back of the head and took my car. Then what? So I thank God every day that things got, that it happened the way it did.
I mean, yeah, I think in the PNB Rock situation, the shooter was 17 years old.
Look at this, man.
I don't think his intention was to go in there and commit a murder. I think he just wanted to grab the jewelry. Because from what I understand, a lot of people were talking about how, PNB Rock's baby mother was posting location and so forth. But then once the police reports came out, those guys were actually in the parking lot. It was a father and his son.
Wow, that's crazy.
The son came in, tried to steal the jewelry. I guess PNB Rock resisted, and he shot him dead. And I guess he even pointed the gun at the girlfriend. And then the father was the getaway driver.
Wow, that's crazy.
So the son gets arrested. The father gets arrested a few days later. He was hiding out in Vegas. The stepmother gets arrested as well because I guess maybe she was trying to hide him out or something. Right. So his whole family's gone at this point, probably forever.
Right.
And it's over a piece of jewelry.
An amazing brother in the process of that shit.
Right, because if you really think about it, these chains, let's just say the chains are $100,000. Right. Let's say the PNB Rock spent $100,000 on these custom chains. Trying to get rid of some chains like that.
I mean, they're custom.
They're custom chains, so they don't have a serious resale value. Then you're dealing with a very high-profile piece of stolen property. So you're going to have to go to a jeweler that'll give you 10 cents on the dollar if you're lucky. If you're lucky.
Because they got to melt it down and reprocess.
They got to melt it down, put diamonds all over the place in different pieces to try to hide it.
It's a lot.
If you're lucky, you might get 10 grand.
If you're lucky.
If you're lucky. It'll probably be less. An amount of money that once it's in your pocket, you might blow it all in a weekend. Yeah. And now you're probably going to do life in prison.
Look at that. For what?
For what?
That's
You know?
crazy.
Yeah. It's a sad
That's the
sad
thing. People don't
situation.
think that far in. They don't think it through before they make these decisions. They just do it for clout. They don't even care about the money no more.
I mean, speaking of money, you yourself, when you made your first $1 million, how'd you spend it?
I blew it. I blew it. I blew it so fast.
What'd you blow it on?
The first thing I bought was a studio, though.
Okay.
I bought a recording studio because I said this is going to be my safety net.
Okay.
If all fails, I got a studio I can rent out to people that want to make demos, or I can write songs and sell them and produce records and sell them to artists and record labels. So I said, okay, cool. That's the investment side.
How much was that?
That's about $250,000.
Okay, so I got another $750.
Yeah.
Okay, now keep in mind on that $1 million, half of it will probably go to taxes.
I didn't.
You're not thinking about that at the time.
I didn't even know what taxes was. I didn't know what taxes was.
This is all my money.
I didn't know
Uncle
what
Sam ain't
taxes
getting
were.
none of this.
None of that. Right. That was
Right. When the
$250,000.
reality is he gonna
Then-
take his chunk and he'll give you some penalties on top of that.
Right.
So right.
So then I took $150,000, gave to my mom.
Okay.
Took
Good.
another $150,000, gave to my pops.
Mm-hmm.
Then I gave all my brothers like $25,000.
Okay.
And then I saw a house that I wanted. I bought that in Panola Road. At the time, the house was like $500,000, but I put $100,000 down.
Mm.
Right. So I think I was.
So now you got a
like,
mortgage on top of it.
Right.
So now you're in debt.
I'm not even thinking about that because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do shows. I'm still doing production. I'm writing. That'll pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that far ahead. Whether or not it's gonna happen, it didn't matter. But I knew that's how I was gonna pay for it.
Yeah.
Right. So after that came out, I think probably within 3 months, I had less than $100,000 in the bank.
You still haven't paid taxes.
No,
So you're actually in the hole right now.
I was completely in the hole.
Yeah.
And
In the hole for about 400.
Easy. Because we
Easy.
were 40% tax bracket.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was before I even got a business manager to know that. I didn't even get a business manager to manage that money. That money came straight to my personal account. So now I'm with less than $100,000. So I gotta get a whip. So I went and got this bright cherry red Corrado.
Corrado, what's that?
It was a Volkswagen Corrado.
Oh, the
It was
Volkswagen Corrado.
It was
Okay.
the only sports car that Volkswagen ever made, and they only made about 150 of them.
Okay.
Beautiful car. And at that time, it was like $40,000. So I was like, man, should I pay this in payments or should I just buy it out? Don't have to worry about it. Then I said to myself, you know what? If I lose everything, at least I got a studio and a car to pay for, to a studio and a car that I can say, I got something to show for it.
This is what happens when you don't have a business manager.
Right.
here. This
I got
is-
something to show for it. So
Yeah.
I bought it. So I
Right.
said, I got it.
Right.
Needless
and
to say-
it's worth 20% less as soon as you pull out of the lot with it.
Right. Period.
Right.
Needless to say now, 3 months later, I'm like $10,000 in my bank account. But I'm riding good.
You got a studio,
I got a studio.
place to live.
I got a place to live for a certain amount of time.
So the bank took it back?
Until I can't afford the lease. Until I can't afford the mortgage,
yeah,
rather. You know what I'm saying? So now I'm in grind mode. I'm in grind mode now because I'm like, man, I got to keep these bills going. I got to, of course I got a cell phone too. I forgot about that. So then it was grind mode. Then I'm back to work. Stayed in the basement every day, just produce it. Some records hit, some press didn't. And then when they did hit, you had to wait like 90 days for the label to cut the check.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, ooh. But then slowly but surely, my finances start catching up with my debt. And then from there, I knew what not to do because I felt what it was like to be underwater.
Yeah.
And then from there, my life just got better because I started managing properly. I found a business manager, got with NFKSB, and then they lined me up. Now I'm just like, I make it, money go directly to them. I got my cell phone where I can see everything, where it goes to, who it goes to, how much it went to, and everything that's put away, allocated for taxes, for expenses, everything. So now I'm like moving right.
Was this around the time where you were having your brother Boo do shows?
Oh no!
Impersonating you?
Those were the brown paper bag days.
That was before.
That was a matter of fact. That was actually after.
After.
That was after.
That's how you made your money back?
That helped.
So how much would the fake Akon get to do a show?
At that time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think we was doing about 25,
25,000?
30 grand a show. You know
Man.
what I'm saying? Something like that. Because we only had like, one song out, and then Ghetto came and did really well. So we had 2 songs out, So it was just Ghetto, and then, but when Mr. Lonely came, that's what changed my life.
That was the big song.
It went from 30,000 to 300,000 overnight. For sure.
I remember Vlad TV was in SRC Records, which was part of the Universal building at the time. And I remember I ran into Avery at some little event that was happening in the building, and he was like, "Mr. Lonely, that's gonna be the hit record." I'm like, "Really? 'Cause I like ghetto." He's like, "No, trust me,
Right.
that's gonna be the record." I'm like, "That's not really." He's like, "Trust me on this one."
Wow.
And sure enough, he was right.
He was right. One thing about Avery and Monty and those guys, they got a radar for hit records, man. They get it.
Yeah, that's why they are where they are after all this time.
Right. They still at it. Still killing it.
The whole situation with your manager, Screw, getting killed, was that before that record or after that record? Was it around the same time?
That was before that record. It was actually right. It's interesting enough because when Mr. Lonely dropped, it was right before he passed. That's what's crazy.
Huh. Because it almost reminds me of the PNB Rock situation.
Yeah.
It was a robbery that turns into a murder because someone is resisting.
Yeah. But it's not resisting. It was a little different because with him, Screw was like the Robin Hood. Like he was always the one. It wasn't even Screw getting robbed. It was Capone.
It was Capone from CNN.
It was Capone getting robbed, and then Screw came and intervened to stop the robbery. So when he went to take the gun away from dude, the gun went off.
And you were right there when it happened, right?
I was upstairs seeing it happen. Then that's when, by the time we came down, it was a big brawl, everybody fighting. And then they got me in my car, ran me to the hotel because we had to go to Bahamas that following morning. And we had just called, say, "Yo, make sure Screw get to the hotel." We go because by the time the fight had broken out, but then Screw wasn't feeling right. He's like, "Man, I heard they was telling me that he wasn't feeling good." Next thing he just said, "I'm not feeling good," and he just collapsed. So all this time he got shot in the abdomen, but didn't know he got shot because of the adrenaline, everything moving. By the time they checked him and realized he was bleeding on the side, that's when they was like, "Oh man, he's been shot." So by the time the ambulance came, picked him up, and took them to the hospital, it didn't give him enough time to make it.
Was that the first time you saw someone get killed?
Nah, that was the first time someone close to me though.
Oh, before it was just being in the vicinity.
Right, it was just being in the vicinity or hearing about it.
Yeah, man, these robberies, man, listen, you rob me, you could have it. Period. I'll take it off. I'll give it to you gift wrapped. I'll give you recommendations on how to wear it. You should wear brown with this watch.
Right.
It goes well with your skin tone. Here's some pictures here. I'll send them to you so you could reference it. My life ain't worth a Rolex watch or a Cuban link chain or some Yeezys or some Gucci. Like you could have it. You could have it. All this shit is insured anyways.
Thank you. Like why?
It's all insured. You could have it. But listen, I understand being a man, and I've been robbed by the police in Mexico, and you want, your natural instinct as a man is to fight back.
Right.
But you got to take a step back and realize it's a fight you can't win.
Right. You got to be able to use your common sense, especially when you got family.
Yeah.
So now you got to say, okay, what's more important? Is it this, possession that they're trying to take from me, or the family that's waiting for me at home? Period.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of family, I remember you made some comments about women. You're saying in Africa, the way women interact with men is completely different than the way men interact with women. And, people got upset and so forth, but
naturally. But I mean, I kind of I expected that because it's two different traditions. It's two different ways of how women are raised in Africa and how they're raised in America. In America, unfortunately, they're forced to be more independent because a lot of the men ain't stepping up. So you can't even blame the women here for that. In Africa, our only literally job is to make sure that the woman is comfortable. Like she shouldn't have to work. And if she does, it's her choice. But it's our responsibility to make sure that we feed the family. We provide.
Okay, so the two-parent working household is a rarity in Africa.
It's a rarity, yeah. The male is most likely the one doing it. And if it's the male, then it's the kids that's old enough to work. The males is old enough to work, providing with them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I remember in our last interview, you said a few things that got people in an uproar.
As they always do.
As we always do. Like we always do about this time.
Right.
You said that Africans no longer think about slavery, whereas Black Americans still blame the past.
Right.
And this set off a whole
uproar.
You remember when it was happening.
Yeah, I remember.
I think Shade Room picked it up and whatever else. Do you feel differently about that now, or do you feel exactly
No, I feel the same. Nothing changed.
How'd you feel when you were getting the, the comments?
I didn't even notice.
Didn't even notice.
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, it's my personal opinion.
Right.
Everybody's not going to agree.
Yeah.
I just believe that here in America, we can fight harder. I just feel like we let too much slide. And more than anything, we allow ourselves as a people not to come together to change the situation. Because we can change it together. But I don't think we want it as bad as we fight for it. Because it's one thing to complain about it or to protest about it. It's another thing for us to come together and do something about it. Action is always going to be a better cure than sitting back and talking.
I mean, it's been interesting because with me doing so many interviews with different, people from different walks of life,
right?
American, Black Americans as well as immigrants like yourself,
right?
Not technically an immigrant, but kind of an immigrant,
right?
More or less.
Immigrant mindset,
to like a DJ Academics who's a Jamaican immigrant and so forth. There's always this interesting kind of backlash that happens with, what they call FBA, Foundational Black Americans.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Where like some of the things that my guests will say really cause people to get really upset. I remember, for example, I interviewed NLE Choppa, right? Who's, I believe his mother is Jamaican. And he's a younger kid. He's like 19. So I was telling him about the foundations of hip hop, where, the guy who's responsible for inventing hip hop, Kool Herc, is actually Jamaican.
Right.
Right. So I talked about how when you look at what he did, he took some of the sensibilities of the Jamaican dancehall culture and brought them to America, but then instead of using reggae music, he used American music. And then that in turn became hip hop and so forth. And there was a whole thing like, oh, how dare Vlad try to change history? Like Jamaicans had nothing to do with hip hop. Nothing. Now, the guy's Jamaican. He was born in Jamaica. Like, he's the inventor of hip hop. And he was born in Jamaica. You can't say Jamaicans had nothing to do with hip hop. Or, Fat Joe said that blacks and Puerto Ricans invented hip hop. Oh, no, you're trying to change. No, Puerto Ricans had nothing to do with it. And you talk to like the Grandmaster Kaz of the world was like, there's Puerto Ricans in my rap group. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's a whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we as a culture created it.
When you see these types of arguments that kind of, break out with you kind of, I guess, sometimes getting attacked in the process with you being African, how do you feel about those things?
Well, those things don't really bother me because I don't take those things personal, because everyone's personal feeling is going to generate a certain emotion. And I'm not going to feel the way you feel about a comment because I come from a different background. I see things differently. But I think the one thing that us as a people has never took the time to do was understand each other's opinions or get to know why I feel this way, right? So if I'm gun-ho saying to myself that what I believe is it and nothing else surpasses or is the truth outside of what I believe, that's not accurate. Ask Kanye West, he'll tell you right now. Right? But why not take the time to understand why Kanye believes that or why he's saying that? Like, bro, what's leading you to say that? Like, help me understand, right? So at the end of the day, we got to take the time to understand each other. But more so than anything, we got to come together. Because we can sit here and all say the white man this, white man that, or they suppress us, they holding us down, the system is built against us. Okay, let's build our own system. Nobody told a white man to abide by a black system. They chose to build their own system to abide by. And guess what we're doing? We're trying to adapt their system and expect their system to work for us. It's not going to work for us because it's not ours to work for. So we have to create our own system. And if we want our own environment to be policed a certain way, we create our own environment, hire our own police. Like, all this can happen. Like, if you want the NBA or the NFL, all these people to treat black athletes a certain way, okay, cool. Let's create our own NFL, NBA. We treat it's not like we don't have the capacity, the resources, the finances, or the influence to do it.
Right.
Let's just fucking do it. And stop complaining. Let's just do it.
And that's what you did with your label in Africa by signing the Wiz Kids.
Period.
Was Sarkodie one of your artists?
Huh?
Sarkodie? I don't know.
Sarkodie.
Sarkodie.
Yeah, he's out of Ghana. He was one of my artists.
I interviewed him.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was amazing, by the way.
Yeah, he's dope.
Sarko
He's dope. So you went over and just basically just picked off all the greatest talents over there, and they're all right there
everywhere in the world,
and they're all ready to sign and get a bigger platform and everything.
Now
else
they
like
all
that.
got bigger platforms and doing amazing. No complaints. They happy as hell.
Right.
They can feed their families and go back to Africa's kings.
Crazy. You working with Tekashi was sort of a point that we talked about.
Right.
I didn't personally agree with it, but you felt that it was the right thing to do. I mean, when you look now, a couple years later, where Tekashi is and so forth, do you felt like doing Locked Up 2 was a good move, or were you like...
Absolutely. I didn't regret not a piece of it.
Not a piece of it.
And everything that I told him, I see is working because he's quiet.
Every so often when someone gets killed, he'll go in and laugh at their death and, and so forth. I think he was in Russia laughing at Brittany Griner and saying she deserves to be there.
But you understand, that's his image. He's an entertainer. He's a troller.
Yeah, he likes to be the villain.
This is what he's known for. He's the villain troller. Like, that's what he does. And we all know that. So you're going to, that's what he do.
But you didn't keep working with him, did you?
Huh?
Did you keep working with him?
Yeah, I mean, to this day, I call him. We talk all the time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, listen, people like him need to have a conversation with people like me. Because otherwise he will go off the rail. Like, some people just need real guidance. They need an OG. They need somebody to give them a different perspective from how they see things. And I think if we all alienate the kids that's growing up, that's influencing these kind of numbers, it's a ticking time bomb. We have to be a part of that. We have to take responsibility as men to help those younger generation, kids with this kind of power and help guide that in a positive direction. Yeah, of course it's going to take time. He may not listen every time I say don't do this, but one thing that I might say that he decided not to do can change everything.
Yeah, I mean, look, and he still has a career more overseas than in the U.S., but he's still doing shows. He still is making money. I reversed my stance. I told him, I said that I would never interview him because of his cooperating. But then people started pointing out,
you gotta interview him, Vlad.
Well, people started pointing out all the Italian mafia dudes that cooperated. That I interviewed, like Sammy the Bull, who took down half the mafia.
I don't know any gangster in the world that survived and still alive that hadn't worked with the feds one way or the other. First of all, there's a certain level of success in the streets you can't get to unless they're part of it.
Okay, well, let's say this. And this has been a conversation with a few people. Do you think that Young Thug can cooperate and then get out and have a career?
The question is he willing to cooperate to save himself and his family? Is he willing to take that shame, that mud in the face, to say, you know what? My daughter, my son, my family,
He's got a bunch of kids, right?
He has to decide whose life is more important. Their life or the people he's trying to impress. Because there's a moment in life where you have to decide if doing the right thing is worth the embarrassment. Because clearly being known to the world as a snitch is the biggest embarrassment in the world. In our generation, that's what it is. Like, right? The key is not to be in
hip hop, absolutely. In hip hop.
In hip hop.
Yeah.
In his environment. The world he knows.
Correct.
Right? So you have listen, life is about choices. You have to decide. No one can make those choices for you. And you have, if I had it my way, I would have prayed that he had guidance to where he would never was even in that position in the first place. But if you find yourself in a position like that, my advice is the only fucking thing that matters is your family. Period.
So let's just say, hypothetically, that he fully cooperates, 27 people go to prison for a significant amount of time, he walks away with probation, and he starts to do songs again. Do you think that hip-hop will allow him to flourish like Tekashi has somewhat flourished?
Absolutely not.
No. Why is that?
His career will be over. It will be over.
But you don't think it's kind of a different day now? Like everyone's, you have Charleston Whites of the world who tell on everyone. And
if he does do music, it ain't gonna be hip hop. Because hip hop, they will cancel him. Now, the good thing about him is that he's so talented, this nigga can do country or pop music.
Spanish music.
Them white folks don't know nothing about none of this is going on in the streets. They don't give a fuck. So he would have to switch genres altogether to even have a chance. But hip hop, you can forget it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Suge Knight, which you had various run-ins, we went into the whole detail of everything last time. He's still in prison. And since last time, both of his lawyers have been indicted.
Wow.
Do you know about this whole story?
I did not know about that.
The whole story behind it is that he was trying to prove that, that guy Bone that ended up beating him up had a gun, right? There was no evidence around this. So basically he started to talk to a guy in prison who said that, yeah, I'll say that you had a gun. And he got his lawyers involved to basically work out a deal to pay him off. Come to find out, this guy was an actual sheriff pretending to be an inmate.
What?
And got him caught up. And then his lawyers both got arrested. One of them just pled.
That's crazy.
But he basically lost his law license forever, and he's on probation for 5 years. The other lawyer is still facing charges. But
That is crazy.
knowing all the bullshit that you went through with Suge Knight, does any of this surprise you
That's
at all?
God, man.
Yeah.
God did it for us.
Yep.
Yep, that's God.
Well, finally, before you leave, we have to talk about this, your new single. Enjoy that. Finally got to watch it. So is this the Fugees Ready or Not beat?
It's the same sample that was used for Fugees. I replayed it, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought when I first heard, which is interesting because it's such a full circle
Yeah,
of you starting with
circle.
the Fugees
Yep.
originally to whatever, 25 years later,
Yeah.
actually.
What's so interesting is the first go round in the industry, when I was in the industry that heavy, I was in it more for the business. I just wanted to make money. I wanted to really, solidify my legacy, investment for the future and all that. But then I sat back and realized, man, I never really had a choice to enjoy it like that. I said, I got to come back just one good time and just go hard. But I want to have fun, though. I don't care about making money, nothing. I just want to go in there and enjoy the hell out of my life on this one. That's how I came up with the song. But then I said, I got to start back from the beginning. And I had to go back. I had to go back from day one. Boy, that Ready or Not, I was like, woo! Let's go.
Yeah, as soon as I heard, I'm like, wait a minute, I've heard this before. I'm like, oh, Fugees, oh shit. I'm connecting the dots. I don't know if anyone else in any other interviews have connected the dots the same way, but like,
Absolutely.
I'm like, oh, he's going back to his original group that he worked with to redo one of their big songs. And I'm not mad at the music video. Not mad. The local wildlife music video was quite nice.
Hey, you gotta enjoy life.
Gotta enjoy life.
Enjoy it, man.
You know? Was that a snapshot to your actual life? Or you don't have to answer that.
Everything around me is
Everything
loosely
around me.
based. Okay? Loosely based on my life.
Right. And your album is gonna be called Akonic.
Iconic. Yeah.
And this is the first time you're actually putting out new music since 2008?
Yeah. This is the
So
first time.
14
I put out a whole
years.
album. First album since then.
You're just too rich, man. You just been you've gone this
I'm
long
too
without
blessed.
having to drop a single, an album.
Man, too blessed. Thank God.
That's what it is, man. Akon. I love whenever we get together, man.
Sure,
We always do it. We both went out of our way to make sure we did this interview in person.
Right.
And I always say this, like I met you almost 20 years ago and you were the exact same person. There's no difference in personality. There's no air of, I'm now up here and, so forth. Whenever we meet up, it's always like, oh shit, let's go kick it and catch up for like 30 minutes. And let's just see what we're doing with each other's lives. And it's always been so cool, man. And congratulations, man. I can't wait to go visit Akon City.
No,
Spend some
I can't
Acorns.
wait to invite y'all, man. I can't wait to host you, bro.
I cannot
wait.
wait. I cannot wait to go to my homie's city named after him. I cannot wait, man. Congratulations on all your success, man. Absolutely. To your 9 kids, to your unknown number of wives, and everything else you got going on in the future. Peace.